welcome to another video on my channel, The Fifth Volt. So in this video, which is a long one, I will show the setup that I've created for a live performance. I was asked to prepare a live performance for a nearby music festival, and there was supposed to be an audio-visual kind of experience for people inside of a hall, and I was asked to prepare a 40-minute set for this. Now, in this video I want to go over the setup, what I've prepared, how I prepared it, some of the ideas, some of the struggles that I had, and I hope this will be interesting to you. And in another video I will do the performance here in my home office because unfortunately the event didn't go ahead. So I had done all this work, so I thought at least I should take a video from the performance, and that is the next video. But in this video I show you how everything is set up. Now it's quite a lot, so I have my notes here, and just quickly over my thought process of how to design this performance, which is the longest I've ever played. For 40 minutes I thought that I would have to have a lot of different parts so that it's not too boring, and especially because I'm not a musician, I actually cannot create melody lines or great accompaniments or anything like that. So, but what I can do is I can do small parts that fit together, and then I can move through these parts, combine them where they are combinable, and then improvise using modulation techniques to make that sonically interesting over time. So this is what I've prepared. This is why this is such a big setup, because I need a lot of hardware to do a lot of interesting parts over the 40 minutes, because again my skills aren't such that I could just grab a guitar and entertain people for 40 minutes. That's just not where it's at. So let's go through this a little bit, and I will take my phone camera to go over some of the parts. So first off, let's see where what are the power parts are. So I have my big rack of big tangible waves, AE Modular rack. I have the Synth Explorer with a few extra modules, and I have the Korg NTS1, which I am using as an effects processor. Now let's go towards the back. In the back you can see that everything is powered by individual power adapters. So there's no chaining of power. I want every item to be powered by itself. And I'm using these nifty book stands that I have here for the big rack. And there's a smaller one at the back here for the Synth Explorer. And I'm using those for holding the racks up. And of course I also have my Deluge, which I will power on. And load my patch. I have the Deluge, which I'm using for some sounds, but mainly for MIDI control and MIDI clock. I'm also using a Novation Launchpad Mini, which I use to play one of the parts on the Synth Explorer. The Akai MIDI mix is connected to the Deluge, and I'm using that to basically just for these three sliders here to dial in the volume of three of these parts on the Deluge. Now in terms of audio routing, I really like to go from the top, which is the mixing desk. So if I was in the venue, then you would have you would basically be handed two inputs, one for left and right signals, so to get a stereo mix. So this cable here is actually going into the line in of my Zoom H6. And otherwise inputs are the channel 1 and 2 are a stereo signal coming from the Deluge, and the channel 3 and 4 on the H6 is the stereo signal coming from the vMix 10, also from Tangible Waves. So the vMix 10 is basically my first important submixer. It is connected to the Korg NTS1 via the effects input and output, so I'm really using that only as an effects, and I will dial in here the tape delay and the cathedral reverb. The cathedral reverb being a software that you have to download from the internet and install. On the vMix 10, I'm using 3 mono channels. So channel number 1 is a drum channel, a drum mix, which is coming directly from the Synth Explorer, from the drum kit here, which goes into an audio output and then into this one. And that is channel number 1 on the vMix. Channel number 2 on the vMix is going into channel output number 1 on the master I/O on the big rack, and that is going into it's coming from the mixer for 4 here at the top, and that is various different drums, which I will go through in a minute. Channel number 3 on the vMix, that is a sequence which is started from this, controlled by this sequencer here, which is coming from the wavetables oscillator that goes through a WASP filter. And I'm using that sequence using the tape delay and cathedral reverb effects of the Korg to achieve some interesting effects. Channel 7 and 8, which is a stereo channel, which cannot get any effects. This is coming straight from my Synth Explorer here from the headphone amp. And last but not least, channel 9 and 10 are the stereo signals coming from the mix console main out. So this is the audio routing explained, and let's go through some of the control. So the control is mainly handled by the Deluge. So the Deluge is the master clock. I'm using the MIDI output that goes straight into the MIDI in on the master here on my big rack. And this is sending MIDI clock at 120 beats per minute. And it is not going to the Synth Explorer because the Synth Explorer is connected to the Launch Key Mini via a MIDI cable that is going directly from the launch key into the master. And unfortunately, the launch key does not send clock. So to clock the drums, here I'm using a very long purple cable that goes into the big rack, and it's getting 8th notes. On the Deluge, I also have a track that is using MIDI channel 16, and that is going to the big rack, and it's controlling one of the voices. I also have another track on the Deluge on CV and gate 1, so you can see that here, CV and gate, and they are going into the CV 1 and 2 on the master I/O, and from there they're going through the quantizer and through to an envelope, and eventually ending up controlling the 555 oscillator from BF Synth. On the quantizers. So I'm using the quantizer for everything. So all the MIDI notes coming from the Deluge, all the CV values coming from my sequencers are going into this quantizer and is set to pentatonic minor scale. And similarly on this rack as well, when I'm playing the notes on the Launch Key Mini, that actually goes through the quantizer and going into pentatonic minor as well. So some of the keys actually sound the same because they're being quantized, and that means that basically I don't even have to know what I'm playing. All I know is that it will sound okay in the pentatonic minor scale, which is great because I have no idea what to do. Okay, so this was an overview over the routing and control of everything. Let's go and talk about the different parts and voices. Okay, so let's go over the various parts. So I have a list. So first off, on the Deluge, I have these 3 tracks here, which are various different things, and I can control their volume, so they're always running. I can control their volumes with the MIDI mix. So the first one is a bass one. The second one is a kind of a glitter. Basically just random notes where each one of them I've assigned a different randomness to it, so they go on and there's a lot of delay and stuff on them. And the last one is a big kick. So that, you know, I hope that I was hoping that in a big hall that would make a lot of noise. So on the big rack, I have the drum mix, so the mixer 4/4 here, and let's turn that on, which has a channel here on the vMix. So if I turn that on and then dial in the individual drums. So first one is a bass drum, which is coming from the MS-20 filter. The second one is the snare drum, which is coming from the SD110 from Wonky Stuff. And then I have just a kick drum from the BD55 module from Wonky Stuff. And the last one is the Rimshot module from Wonky Stuff. So that is the drum section from the big rack. Then I have, on the big rack, I have this mixer here in the center, which is a fairly important mixer. The first one actually is not part of the mix. That is just an attenuator because that controls a drone that is stereo panned using the pan crossfade module. And that is a drone. That's just an oscillator going through the grunge filter. And I can add some modulation that's coming from the fabulous 2 Auto module from Kia. So this knob here and the stereo panning is used for 2 voices. One is the drone, but the other one is when I turn down the reverb and I click the switch up here, then I get a different voice on the same knob, which is a ratcheted low pack. And because it's a drum, I don't want to use the reverb here. After that, if I don't use it anymore, I just have to dial it back, the reverb back in, and press the switch to get back to my drone. Then I have in the mix the last 3 channels here, level 3, that is the Rains module. There's some modulation on it using the dampening modulation. And the second one is the Solina. And the third one is always on this position because that is a bell that is coming from the FMOS FM oscillator, and I patched it in a way that I just have to press the screen button to get a gong, and I'm using this gong in transitions to kind of, take some attention away from what's going on or to initiate something that's new. I love to just press that button and getting a gong. It's really very satisfying. Now, I also have down here, I have a few voices. So here is a sequence. That's just an oscillator going through the SV filter. I'm using the sequencer here. And then I have this voice here is the Sawvox. So it's the Sawvox here, and that is controlled from the Deluge, where I'm going into the MIDI channel 16. I can play the Sawvox, but it's also going through a delay, so I can do things like this. Which is nice to kind of give a kind of a delayed sound carpet in a way. Now then there's this channel is always this mixer here, and the final channel is another controlled by the Deluge, and this is from this thing, which is CVN gate. And this is the 555 oscillator going through a wave folder, which is also modulated from an LFO using the shape CV. Now, I think I need to properly calibrate that because it sounds very out of tune for me. So I have to use that sparingly, and I really only use those 4 notes at the bottom. And the last sound from the big rack is going straight into this channel here, and that is a wave sequence. So I turn this on now, which is coming from the Wavetables oscillator going through the WASP filter. And the WASP filter is also modulated from an LFO. And the beauty of this is that it sounds not too interesting as now, but it's going through the NTS1. And in there I'm using the tape delay and the cathedral reverb. So this is the sounds from the big rack, and then I have two main voices on the Synth Explorer, and one of them is just a kind of a waspy lead. And obviously it gets more interesting. But it's also, I've got two modulation sources here, so I can turn on just a plain old LFO. Then it's doing the thing for me. But another cool thing is once I actually get to install the switch on the drums from the drum rack here. So that's this one. So if I turn this on, then I can get modulation from the RBSS, which is in sync with the drums. And then there's another voice here, which is just a sequence. Now this is also going to a delay, and I can change that by dialing in delay. And the beauty of this is that there is also the LFO++, which if I turn on the depth here, so these were all the sounds and all the parts that I've created for this set. And of course, the last thing that is not an audio part but a visual one, and that is beauty as well, is of course the ray gun, which you can't see because it's too bright for it, but this is going on and you will see that in the performance which I've recorded at night. So what else is there? To set this all up, I had to obviously also tune everything, and for tuning I'm basically just unplugging one of the audio channels and then I'm plugging in this long cable, and I go into each individual oscillator and tune that by playing here a C on my Deluge, and then I will tune it to that C that I'm playing here, and that's how I tune every single oscillator in this patch. So using this method bypasses all the effects, all the modulation, and I just have to unplug a couple of these CV controls so I don't get the sequences. Also gain staging. So some of the modules in this rack are louder than others or have more signal strength than others. So it really is a careful adjustment of gain across all the different mixers, and also here and also on the zoom. So here I have a very low gain settings so that I can minimize noise, minimize hum, but maximize signal for all the modules. Sometimes I have a thing that's almost like voice stealing, where one module overpowers the mix and just basically kills all the other ones. And that's what you just have to experiment with, going through all the different combinations and gain staging everything so that everything will sound all right. Like for instance the bell here, at first I had this on maximum because it wasn't audible at all, but then later I adjusted all the gains lower, so this was totally too loud, and then I had to dial it back down so that it's not too obnoxious. What else? So audio and visual recording. So I'm recording everything into my Zoom H6, and I'm taking the line out, which would then go directly to the mixing desk, the main desk for the venue. And then let's take my trusty phone. I have a Zoom, a DJI Osmo Action 4 that I'm using to record this view of the set. And then I have here, I have a Panasonic Lumix G85, which is recording this view. And that's basically how I do everything. So I hope this was informative for you. I hope there was something in there that you might have learned, that you didn't know already. And I do hope that you also will watch my performance video, where I put all of this into a big performance.